has the bridge been burned between the Jags and Jalen Ramsey?
I don't think it's been burnt. I don't think it's over. I think that it can be salvaged. Jacksonville just has to do the right things, and they have to be better. They've only won like 2 of their last 14 games, so clearly, losing could take its toll. This man wants to win. Let's call it what it is. He definitely wants to win, and let's applaud him for his restraint because obviously he had a lot that he wanted to say, but he didn't want to give anybody any additional headlines, and that was smart of him. And he was absolutely right in pointing out that neither him nor his agent put out the noise about him wanting to be traded. That emanated or leaked from the Jacksonville Jaguars. It wasn't from him. So let's give credit where credit is due in that regard, particularly considering the residue from Antonio Brown's fiascos in Oakland. Having said all of that, I think if you win games, because they only won 2 of their last 14, if you start winning games, and if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars and you finally take care of a defensive player, because I think in the last 2 years, only like 1 defensive player has received an extension from the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you start taking care of dudes in that regard, I do think it could be salvaged. Now, do I believe it will? I don't, because I believe that the Jacksonville Jaguars will probably be themselves. But to say that it can't happen, I think you can win some games. If you look at this schedule, Marcus, they got the Tennessee Titans coming up. That's going to be a tough one. I assume they'll be 0-3. But then you got Denver. That's a winnable game. Carolina's a winnable game. New Orleans at home without Drew Brees. That's a winnable game. The Cincinnati Bengals, that's a winnable game. The Jets are a winnable game. And then you got the Houston Texans at home, who you just lost to 13-12 on the road. And so you're talking about 6 of the next 7 games, basically, that they can really, really make some noise. And I think that as long as that possibility exists, and then you also acknowledge that this is our best player, we're going to take care of him, I do think things could be remedied. And that's the operative word here, could, because we're asking the question as to whether or not the bridge is burned or what have you. Jacksonville needs to make amends. They could do it. We have to see whether they will or not.
So here's the thing.
I'm sorry, Marcus. I think the bridge has been burned, Stephen A., and it's because of the franchise that he works for, and it's who runs the show there. Consider what happened with Tom Coughlin before the Giants won the Super Bowl, and he'd already had success in the NFL. But his kind of way of, culture-changing ways and doing everything wasn't working, and some players were talking about it and not happy with it. Then he won Super Bowls there. Now he's in Jacksonville. And by the way, maybe some players aren't going to like the way he handles things, but Coughlin's very stubborn and likes doing things his way. And there's a way you can do things with Coughlin, and there's a way that won't work as well. So, for example, Tiki Barber was consistently critical of Coughlin. Jeremy Shockey had a falling out after he got hurt, and he came back. He didn't want to participate in certain things. When the Giants won the Super Bowl, Barber was gone. Shockey was gone. When Strahan and those guys had a little problem with Coughlin, but they knew how to handle themselves, the idea was, let's form a leadership committee, right? Veterans get on the, and Coughlin worked. Also, his job was a little bit in jeopardy at that point, and he was able to work things out with them, and they won another Super Bowl. The point is, there's a way certain things will fly in that organization, in a Coughlin-run organization, and there's certain things that won't. And Jalen Ramsey's approach, I know it was incidental physical contact with the coach on the sidelines. Nevertheless, it got to that level. It was kind of incidental, but it happened. And his continuing to talk about it in the media openly and wanting a trade, that will mean that he is not long for a Tom Coughlin-run organization, in my view. That would be my prediction based on years of watching him operate, Coughlin operate. I do not think this is a mendable bridge. I think that it has been burned, and that the Jags will get something really good for a really good player on the trade market.
I think it's important that y'all recognize, I know that y'all are right. What I'm saying is the operative word is could when we're talking about the bridge being burned. I'm saying that it can be salvaged. Now, do we believe it will be? No, because Jacksonville's history tells us otherwise. For example, Tom Coughlin might need to go. Doug Maroney might need to go. You got a guy in Jalen Ramsey that can make an argument that he's the best cornerback in football. He's getting paid $3.6 million this year. And even though they didn't want to even entertain contract extension talks with him last year or even prior to this season, this man watched guys drafted at pretty much, ahead of him, but in the same draft right up there with them, Carson Wentz, Ezekiel Elliott, Jared Goff. They all got their money. That they're offensive players, obviously. Two's a quarterback, one's a running back. He's a defensive player. We get all of that, but we also have to point to the fact that you had, when they went to the AFC Championship game, you had 6 Pro Bowlers on the defensive side of the ball. None of them got an extension. The one person who ultimately was taken care of was when you brought Malik Jackson in, who wasn't even a part of that team at that particular moment in time, and you took care of him. But you didn't take care of any of those other dudes, and most of them left. And so when you have that going on and you're not taking care of cats and you underpaying them and you're as rigid as Tom Coughlin has been known to be, and then Doug Maroney with his underachieving self, all right, losing 12 of the last 14 games for crying out loud, got the nerve to get in your face on the sidelines, you know, you're going to have a problem with that. But I'm just saying you can clean that stuff up because it's not that he wants out of Jacksonville. He wants away from those guys.
Right.
And somewhere along the way, the organization is going to have to make a choice as to how valuable one of the top cornerbacks, if not the top cornerback in the league, is to a franchise, particularly when you consider the level of ineptitude that they really. Remember, they didn't give those defensive players that money. Off the AFC Championship game, the person who got paid was Blake Bortles. And Blake Bortles, now they're paying $16.5 million with cap money just to have him off the damn team.
Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.